Halloween Ends, a film that I had extremely low expectations for going into it, mainly because I hated Halloween Kills. I have a review for Halloween Kills if you would like to watch that one on more descripting of why I hate that one. Halloween 2018, I didn't mind. I liked some artistic takes that they did in Halloween, especially for the kills and whatnot. But honestly, Halloween 2018 was even like a 6 or a 7. Halloween Kills was, I believe, a 3 out of 10 last year. Now, because I do my due diligence, I am a proper reviewer. I suffered through those two films last night and again this morning in preparation for Halloween Ends. And my opinion still hasn't changed about either, really. Honestly, in 2018, when I saw that Halloween, I actually liked it a lot more than I do now. But Halloween Kills, I just never liked that film, and I saw it in theaters day one. Halloween Ends, written and directed by the same exact people as those two. Directed by David Gordon Green, written by Danny McBride and cohorts alongside. Now, what I find funny about this new trilogy is that these are all the creators and actors from Pineapple Express and Your Highness. To me, that's just really funny. I'm not saying that David Gordon Green and Danny McBride can't be diverse, but I mean, it's just funny. It's just a fun fact that's also actually really funny. Now, Halloween Ends doesn't exactly pick up where Halloween Kills ended. Basically, this film feels more of like a rewritten film after they already crafted a continuation. And honestly, I appreciate that aspect a lot more because Halloween Ends, its story is actually different. Now, don't get me wrong. This film is not going to be for everybody because this Halloween is not your typical Halloween where it's just serial killer in mass just going and killing everybody in sight. This film is actually more so focused on its story and above all, its characters. Halloween Kills, the reason I hate that film is because 98% of the characters were just unlikable and 100% of them always made stupid decisions. In Halloween Ends, there are actually relatable and likable characters. And honestly, the absolute best part about Halloween Ends is its intro. It definitely 100% sets up your expectations for just, a casual Halloween intro, dark, gloomy cinematography inside of a kind of well-lit house, mansion, whatever it was, but with some dark areas here and there. But it does take a spin by the end of the intro. And I did absolutely really appreciate the intro in Halloween Ends. Above all else, I would say that intro alone, it's not a 10, just because the aspects on how it's filmed feels very much like a Halloween, but it's the actions inside of the intro in the story that are just mesmerizing. You go into a Halloween film, you're going in for certain expectations, and that intro subverts your expectations for the better. Now, the rest of the film is 100% set up based off of that intro. The intro at first feels like this shouldn't even be called a Halloween film. But then you go through this film and you're realizing that they took actually a completely different approach for this particular film in the Halloween entries. Now, the number one thing I kept saying to myself over and over while watching this film is we got all of the recurring cast from Halloween and Halloween Kills, especially Jamie Lee Curtis, but with the addition of Wish.com Tom Holland. Now, the story is actually centered around Wish.com Tom Holland's character. Basically, he wasn't framed for a murder, more so as people at first glance just didn't interpret what happened the correct way, basically, and set to go to trial, and then you fast forward into the current time, and he's a free man after all of the things that happen, and basically he's the new Michael Myers in the town, where he's not exactly a serial killer or anything, but he's looked down upon like he is because of events that happened previously at the beginning of the film. Now, Halloween Ends absolutely has Michael Myers in it, but I think that a lot of fans are kind of going to be disappointed with Halloween Ends, if anything, because it really, really has an emptiness to the name and license, Halloween. Michael Myers is in this, but I'd say at most he's in it maybe 15 to 20 minutes. Now, I enjoyed this film throughout, up until the last 10 to 15 minutes. The end of this film is just a giant homage to the entire series, and that's fine. I have nothing against the ending of it, per se. Personally, I wouldn't have chosen that kind of ending for this film. I probably wouldn't choose that ending for any film, other than, I don't know, if it were a film based around cinema as a whole, then sure, maybe, because it would at least be fitting. I didn't like the very end of this film. I thought it was just tonally inconsistent, but I get what they were going for. Now, this film, it's really weird to explain because it drags its feet through the story, but the pacing is also way too rushed, if that makes sense. It's kind of like the story's here and the pacing's here, and they're just kind of differentiated, where the story just kind of drags its feet, and the pacing, I guess it would be considered the editing problem. It just felt rushed as hell. Maybe just because the filming of it, it's kind of like the actors and actresses were just kind of getting to from point A to point B in scene to scene. And that's not really that much of a problem. I just noticed it felt jarring. It wasn't inconsistent for tone or pacing. It just felt way too rushed. This film is an hour and 45 minutes, give or take, and honestly, this film actually felt like a 2-hour film, even though the pacing felt super rushed. Now, that's not a bad thing, but I feel like Halloween Ends is a little confused on what it actually is. And I cannot stress this enough. I appreciate what they did for Halloween Ends. I don't dislike this film at all. I actually thought it was very intriguing, the route that they took in Halloween Ends. With that being said, it doesn't exactly make sense if you watched Halloween Kills, and especially the very end of it. Now, I understand that's dismissed as a non-existing plot hole just because it fast forwards 4 years later, everybody's in Jollyland, la-di-da. But the thing is, they use that for a plot device. Okay, fine. But then in between those segments, you have recurring characters that bring up the past. So again, another inconsistency in it. The acting, I thought, was hit and miss, scene for scene. Not terrible in any scene, but there were some scenes that were just acted better, and then other scenes that just made it feel jarring because the acting wasn't as good. Overall, Halloween Ends is not really a recommendation for everybody, and throughout this film, just because I was super intrigued on the route that they took with the story, I wanted to give this an 8 or even possibly a 9. But the pacing, as well as the whole entire end of it, I didn't like either of those. And I must say again that this film is not going to appeal to everybody. If you're going in for another typical Halloween film, you're going to be majorly disappointed. Go watch Halloween Kills. That's a piece of shit you'll probably like then. But overall for me, I'm gonna have to give it a 7 out of 10 because I did still really enjoy the route that they took, but I understand objectively that it has a lot of flaws and faults to it. So, 7 out of 10, Halloween Ends. Thank you.